Hello everyone, welcome back to the Building WorkSphere in Public. In the previous episode, we explored the architectures of WorkSphere, including our layered architecture, DTO, entities, and Java record. Today, we are going to look at very small but very important part of our employee APIs, and that is the request validation using @validate. Whenever an external client sends the data to our application, we cannot simply assume that the data is correct. So the question is, how do we make sure that invalid data doesn't enter to our business logic? That's exactly what we are going to see today. First, let's see about the controller class, which is an employee controller. Inside this employee controller, if you see, we have a create method where we are creating a create employee. This is the method, and under this method, if you see, during the request, whenever the JSON request came to this method, we have the @validate in its parameters. What it does it means? If we look at this method, there is a several things happening, like the @post mapping, and @request body, @request body, and that is incoming JSON request should be converted into the employee request. Similarly, at the post mapping is exploring our API as a post endpoint. And interesting point is that today we have the annotation called @validate. So what does this means? What does @validation do? @validate tells the Spring to validate the employee request which is coming from the client object, and before the request continue through our normal application. Conceptually, our request flow looks like if we see, our request looks like client will send a JSON request which is a employee request, and then request comes through the request body, and this employee request now validate through the validation, and it's having the validations inside it. Then it will move to the employee service. Now how it's coming is, then if the request passes the validation, it can continue to our service layer, and if the validation fail, Spring stop the normal processing and returns a validation error in the response back. If we see our employee request, this is the DTO, which is in the form of records as we spoken earlier. Now inside this DTO we have the @validate. So but there is one important, like @validate tells the Spring to perform the validation, but where do they define the actual validation rules? We define them in our request object. This is request object, nothing but the DTO class. Now at the point you can see that we have validate our field, like if we see the first name, it is validate with the @not blank. Similarly, last name is also annotated with the @blank. Similarly, we have in the email @blank. Also, we have @email. What this @email will see? It will check the actual structure of the email format, like email.com, is it following or not, email structure format. Similarly, not blank follow that the empty, it should the field should not be empty, it should have some specific value. So these are some validation what we are keeping at the field level inside the DTO. The exact annotation that are currently present in our employee request, then this usually because our validation rules stay closer to the data that we are receiving from the client. Why we are not exploring, or why we are not validating this in the business layer or service layer? Because at the moving forward, the content, or you can say the coding, will be huge. Before reaching to the business logic, we should validate our request at the first level itself. So the first role of the DTO is to validate the request whatever it is coming from the client. Now if we see, just we can test this by our postman, and you can see in the postman right now I have one post method as we are requested is to create an employee. It is in a post mapping, so we are sending as a post mapping, and we are sending the URL that we will later see, like how it is interacting or how it is communicating or connecting to our controller. But first, this is a simple create method which is having the body with a JSON format request, where we are sending the first name, last name, email, salary and department. These are the few fields which are required to create an employee. So we are sending just this first employee creation. As you can see, if I am sending this, it is successfully created, like the employee with the ID 10 is successfully created at our database. But what if like client doesn't send the first name? If we send the request with empty first name, it should not move further. What is saying? Validate field, that is first name is required. Like, let's see with this another thing, if we remove the last name, what we will get? So what we are getting, the last name is required. That is all validation is coming because of the validation we have kept in the DTO layer. Similarly, if we change the email format, like we are just sending the name itself in the email, so it should violate, like please provide a valid email. That means it is not following the correct email format, so it is not the correct way to send an email. If we send the empty email, it should say something like not blank, email is required. So these are few validation which can be followed during the creation or during the creation of an application. We can follow at the DTO layer itself without moving further inside the service layer, or you can say business logic. Now we can say, as you see, the request doesn't proceed as a successful employee creation. Spring defect, the validation failure, and over existing global exception handling takes care of converting that failure into our standard error response. The global exception I will be telling in upcoming videos. Now if you see, we have valid and invalid request and we have compare. So what is the process is, if you see, if we are sending invalid request, what the client is doing, first it is coming to the employee request, inside the @valid it will check. Once it will check, it will fill the validation field and give the error response. And similarly for the success response is valid request, the client will send to the employee request, it will validate passes, then it will move to the employee service and the employee is created. Similarly, these are the more flow how the application is working behind, and why this is important in the real project is, now this may looks like a very small feature, but imagine if enterprise application receives thousands of API requests. We don't want every service method to repeatedly check whether the request contain a blank name, blank claim as an invalid email or other basic input problems. We validate the input request at the API boundary itself. We can't check it in the service method. So this keep our business logic clear and makes the application easier and to maintain. Now some interview question related to this topic is, here is like, what is the difference between @request body and @valid? So the answer is, @request body is responsible for converting the HTTP request body into a Java object, and @valid tells the Spring to validate that the Java object using validation rules we define. So this solves two different problems. Now engineering insight, the engineer lesson for the episode is, don't allow invalid external input to travel unnecessarily deeper into your application. Validate it at the boundary level itself. It is a small design decision, but it becomes a very important and the application grows because of this. In the next episode, we will see most validation requests and another important design questions. Thank you for the day and have a nice day. Keep learning, keep growing. Thanks.